We will now look at one aspect of sustainable procurement, which is critical to developing and building a more sustainable and a decarbonized supply chain. Sustainable procurement, as defined by EcoVadis, refers to the integration of specifications, requirements, and criteria that are compatible with the protection of environment and society. Sustainable procurement has many benefits like cost reduction, leading to a reduction in the overall price that an organization can charge for its products or services, better risk management, and value creation. McKinsey, the consulting firm, has described the steps involved in developing a sustainable procurement plan. The starting point to that is determining the baseline, which we have now seen earlier as part of the ESG strategy discussion. Once we have established and determined the baseline, it is then identifying how far to go, what goals and targets to set for each of the critical items identified as part of the baseline assessment. Again, a similar exercise that we have seen as part of the ESG strategy development process. From there, we look at setting the core, which is the external and internal policies and guidelines in place to meet the business demands. These are then used to drive value creation from the overall procurement activity, which includes a combination of resource optimization, waste reduction, and assessing the supplier base to develop and build a more sustainable, a more zero carbon or a low carbon base of key suppliers. The last step to a sustainable procurement plan involves making the required changes within an organization to implement the sustainable procurement initiatives identified as part of the value creation initiatives, and ensuring that the new way of doing things is embedded as part of the overall procurement activity on a day-to-day basis for maximizing the impact and reducing the carbon emissions from the procurement activity. We have already touched upon this, but lastly, as a summary, we again look at some of the key benefits of sustainable procurement and by extension, benefits of a decarbonized as well as a more sustainable supply chain. The first aspect is low material costs, obviously through optimizing resource usage and reducing waste and other raw materials that we use as part of the overall supply chain will lead to cost reduction and from a material as well as a resource usage perspective. The second point is working out a premium and a rate reduction as well. With decreasing material costs, the overall price and the cost required to produce a good or a service can be reduced, which organizations can pass on such rates and premium reductions to their end customers. The third aspect and benefit includes optimizing the logistics function and activity within an organization. This would mean from a fleet and an asset requirement perspective, as well as the overall kind of logistics and the distance traveled between the suppliers and the company operations, thereby again leading to a reduction in fuel usage and a lower carbon footprint, but also optimizing the fleet of transport vehicles that an organization will have at its disposal. Risk mitigation is another benefit of sustainable procurement. We've seen earlier that organizations who consider risks from climate change, like impact of a drought or a flood on a key raw material that an organization uses for its process, can help mitigate and manage potential supply chain disruptions really well, and therefore sustainable procurement and by extension a decarbonized and a sustainable supply chain can be an ideal tool for overall risk mitigation purposes. And lastly, a combination of all these 4 points: reduction in costs, possible higher top line growth through new products or through selling more products, optimizing the overall operations activities and the logistics function, and through better managing the risks, there is an opportunity for a company to generate a lot more value from its procurement and its overall supply chain activity. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you as part of the next topic.